Just wait till he get to his place and give him a few minutes to review his documents for him.
Why didn't we start?
To reconvene this meeting, would the clerk please call the roll?
Legislator Chase.
Here.
Cusack.
Yes.
Marshall.
Here.
McCarville. Ransenhofer.
Here.
Swanek. Weinstein.
Here.
DiBenedetti.
Here.
Duza. Holt.
Here.
Kuick.
Here.
Marinelli.
Here.
Schroeder. Smith. Robluski.
Here.
Form President.
A solution for this crisis, it is worthwhile to review how we got here. The story starts in 1999 when the current administration was elected on a promise to lower county property taxes by 30%. The majority of the legislature in 1999 turned a proposed 6% property tax reduction into an 18% reduction before the new administration took office in 2000. My belief is that the majority of the legislature was motivated by anger and relied on an explanation that this is what the people wanted. I further believe that the 2000 and 2001 majority approved and encouraged huge spending increases, including legislative initiative money, with the idea of spending down the surplus as quickly as possible. The administration subsequently proposed an additional 14% property tax reduction in 2000 for 2001. My suggestion was 5%, 5%, and 5% over 3 years was ignored. A 15% three-year reduction would have added $30 million to the present reserves. In retrospect, this was the first clue that the administration was inflexible and visionless. The administration's spending policies persisted in 2002, encouraged and acquiesced by both the majority and the minority. In 2003, the minority started to complain about spending, getting ready for the election in 2003. The administration's spending picked up in 2003, using reserves, tobacco money, and one-shot revenue sources. This covered up the county's true financial plight until after Election Day. In November of 2003, both the majority and the minority, with a few people objecting, chose to trade their ability to modify the 2004 budget for an increase in pork. The unwritten rules of the legislature require a vote for the budget in order to obtain the pork in the budget, and so everyone except a lame duck legislator who had already lost his pork approved it. Within 2 months after Election Day in 2003, there were threats of cash flow problems and bond downgradings unless the legislature approved guaranteeing $106 million in bonding by ECMCC. The legislature was led to believe that it would be irresponsible for the county's financial crisis if it did not approve the ECMCC guarantee. In retrospect, the House bill owed the county over $50 million because of unreported bad debt and losses, $50 million of bad debt because it would wipe out half of the county's reserves and lead to an immediate crisis and down rationale for the urgent ECMCC bond proposal because the county already had the ability to sell revenue anticipation notes to meet cash flow needs. The deficit problem grew in 2003 and 4 because the county had used tobacco resources and failed to obtain cost reductions. The administration's projected deficit is $130 million. My projection is $100 million budget. The administration's use of $35 million in reserves, presumably for the previous year's Medicaid, $17 million for the retirement incentive that never was, failure to reorganize the workforce, contracted raises, and utility increases do not account for a deficit of this magnitude. Unfortunately, this is not a one-year issue because my projections are for 2006 to start with a $40 million hole because of inflated sales tax revenue. Unless Medicaid is reformed, or at least capped, and the county reduces expenses by $30 million, presumably with workforce reduction, we are just putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. We have 600 employees in the county workforce that indicated an interest in accepting the return.
A red book and a green book. The Christmas colors, red and green. And I don't think the county executive had Christmas in his heart. It would have been better if he would have given us a yellow book and a blue book. Yellow spells for gutless, and the blue book spells for hope. And that's what this green book indicates. Legislator Weinstein brought up a lot of good points, and my majority leader, Lynn Marinelli, brought up a lot of fine points. And I'm going to leave those fine points to the people that are studying the budget, the Finance Committee under Legislator Al Benedetti. Just a few weeks ago, we legislators conducted 4 public hearings. We heard from residents who support our library, our zoo, public works, and the Philharmonic. We heard from school nurses, cultural and human service organizations, public safety, and yes, we even heard from the Buffalo Bills, who are not fans of the Buffalo Bills, who are not county employees. I also received a letter from our newly appointed bishop of the Catholic Diocese, His Excellency Edward Kmiec, is urging the legislators to do the charitable thing. Mr. Chairman, as a veteran paratrooper at the 82nd Airborne Division, the same division that just recently was activated to serve in Iraq, I am all too aware that yesterday was Pearl Harbor Day, a day 63 years ago that was, in the words of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, a day of infamy. We did memorialize that. Here in Erie County, we have an opportunity to avoid our own day of infamy by saving our important county services that people have come to rely on and to expect. These services include our county veterans office that assists thousands of veterans each year. And as our boys come home, our boys and women, men and women come home from Iraq, come home to Erie County, they'll have a veterans office to be able to rely on. That's being eliminated. My office has received hundreds of phone calls and letters and thousands of emails from residents by a 5-to-1 margin urging me to do the right thing. At the public hearings, it warmed my heart to see school children with songs in their hearts, urging us to serve their libraries and urging us just to remind the legislators that attended these public hearings, it made the Buffalo News front page. Children with guitars, singing the songs, they could have came with sticks and stones, but we would have been in deep trouble. Those same children, Mr. Chairman, are urging us to vote on this red budget and tear it up. Tear it up. They want no part of that red budget. There's hope in the green budget. When all is said and done, I believe this day will not be remembered as our day here in Erie County as a day of infamy. It will be remembered as the day county legislators came together in a bipartisan fashion and worked together to move Erie County forward. And finally, Mr. Chairman, in closing, I would like to quote Donald Trump, as I believe most county residents would say to the county executive, Joe Jambra, whoever drafted your red budget, tell them you're fired. Thank you, sir.